Good morning and welcome to Behind the Screen. I am JM, and this is a show where we hang out, we talk about beautiful things, things about gaming, things that inspire us. And I've got the next 2 weeks all planned out. I'm very excited, but today we're talking about Savage Worlds because I love Savage Worlds. We play Savage Worlds here in the iconic studio. Good morning to Dream Shaper. Hey, I'm looking forward to seeing you at Chaosium Con. Good morning to Tink. I'm looking forward to seeing you at Chaosium Con. Evan and I will both be at Chaosium Con. And if you are out there in Ann Arbor in roughly 15 days, uh, come say hi. So, what are we talking about today? Well, as I said, Savage Worlds, they have just released the science fiction companion, and it's actually spectacular. Now, so here's the thing. I love science fiction. Tink and I have talked about this. I love reading science fiction. I'm a huge fan of science fiction. I am very particular about the sci-fi games that I run. Like typically I want either something a little bit more science fantasy, like Fading Suns, um, or like hard sci-fi, like Infinity. Those are actually the only two science fiction games I have, if you don't count Rifts, which is also a total science fantasy setting. Good morning, Padre, and to DM James. Good to see both of you. This, however, this actually got me very excited. The people at Pinnacle did a wonderful job with this, and I'm not just saying that because I wrote an adventure. If you back this Kickstarter, uh, they did a bunch of adventures written by Pinnacle staff to do different genres, and I picked the mech genre, and I did a sort of BattleTech meets kaiju, so my Pacific Rim style adventure where you are mecha pilots running around a world with giant megafauna and trying to get off planet. So, 300 pages. This is the largest one they've put out, and honestly, I mean, when it comes to gaming, I am much more of a sci-fi or a fantasy superhero or horror focus, so you would expect the first three companions to be one of my favorites. But man, they did such a great job with this. And I think one of the reasons they did that is the companions are always designed to be comprehensive for a genre. And while fantasy and horror and superheroes, there are shades of that genre, I think science fiction means the most things to the most people. And by that I mean there are so many different genres of sci-fi that if I say, hey, do you like sci-fi? And somebody says yes, we may not like the same things. Um, like, for example, I'm a huge fan of Star Trek and Babylon 5. I'm not as big of a fan of Star Wars, which is weird because you would think space wizards in the future past would be something that like I really would have gone on to. Somebody may not like Star Trek, but is a huge Alien franchise fan. Some people may think Blade Runner when they think sci-fi and don't want anything off Earth. Some may think of the culture novels or books of the New Sun. Like the sci-fi genre, I would argue, is even larger with its subgenres than the fantasy genre. And this book seeks to give you the toolkit to emulate basically any genre in here. Knights of the Smith Dinner Table, I 100% agree. Babylon 5, I've watched all the way through 7 or 8 times. It might be my favorite science fiction show of all time. It is a Mary Poppins show. It is practically perfect in every way. I say that even acknowledging the rough start they had in season 1 and the weird time compression at the end of season 4 because I didn't know if they were getting a season 5. Um, adore it, and I'm kind of glad that more and more people are acknowledging the fact that Babylon 5, at the very least, influenced what was going on with Deep Space Nine, if not conspiracy theory. Actually, they were running off JMS's show notes for when he pitched Babylon 5 as a Star Trek show. Conspiracy theory, if you will, but huge fan of Babylon 5. Marcus, I would pour it out, but I don't want to spread fizzy water all over my table. So what is in here? Well, if you're familiar with any of the other Savage Worlds companions, it is pretty much, identical. You start with the heroes. We get new ancestries, cultures, new hindrances, new edge. One of my favorite new edges, I sent it to Tink literally as soon as I read it. It has some Last Parsec tie-ins in this if you're a Last Parsec fan. Favored power, it's a seasoned edge that requires an arcane background and the associated skill to be at D8 or higher. It allows you to ignore 2 points of penalties when using a particular power. So you pick your favorite power, you ignore 2 points of penalties, and these are any penalties. Multi-action, wound, fatigue, anything. If there's a penalty on this edge, or on this power, you ignore the first 2 points. John Doom, good to see you. The gear section, as you can imagine, is massive in the Sci-Fi Companion because for so much of science fiction is kind of defined by the gear. We're talking over 45 pages worth of gear, and this covers, and they have not tech levels, what do they call them in here? Development levels. So there's basically 3. Dev 1 gear is stuff that's just beyond current level of technologies, like stuff that we can theorize about or better versions of stuff we have today. Dev 2 is any technology that's beyond that, but falls short of like science fantasy. So anti-gravity, artificial gravity, FTL, these kinds of things. And then Dev 3 is kind of your ultra tech, to steal a GURPS term for that. So this is the stuff like matter transportation and black hole guns and stuff like that. New setting rules. The big one that I like is the fact that they updated how Bounded and Tangled works. They changed it up a little bit. So if you're following along at home, new Bounded and Tangled rules inside this book. Most of these setting rules, the main ones are things like extreme environments, energy management for your starship. There's rules for hacking in here, logistics, salvage and trade. And then they go into here are what all of the different sci-fi styles there are, as well as what setting rules to use for them. Then, this book also includes, this book includes so much, it's hard not to read it and get excited with so many different ideas for a campaign. We've got rules for cyberware, power armor, robots, starships, vehicles, walkers, world maker, and then new powers. And the new arcane backgrounds are, obviously there's a bestiary and artifacts, but I want to talk about the new arcane backgrounds because if you're a sci-fi fan, let's see what we have in here. We have a chaplain, which is a very 40k-ish kind of chaplain. A chronomancer for your Doctor Who fans. A Gravlock, which is a warlock who uses gravity control powers. A hard light controller, which is basically somebody who uses hard light holograms as their powers. The Mystic, which feels very Rifts to me. A Psyker, obviously. A Shepherd, which is going to be, if you watched our Fading Suns game, is going to be a priest more like the Fading Suns priest than the chaplains of the 40k universe. A Shifter, which is somebody who uses an arcane background to represent genetic modifications or advanced biotech to be a shapeshifter kind of character. And then, of course, you have to have the Star Knight, who wield laser swords, which are an elegant weapon of a more civilized age. And rounding it out, we have the Technomancer and the Warper. The Warper is a character who is built around sort of traveling through space, right? Kind of controlling the fabric of space-time as they move through this. And the bestiary is huge and chock full of everything you would want in a science fiction bestiary. I mean, we're talking It is 70 pages, covering everything from parasite space zombies to megafauna to sandworms, um, scions, neo animals. Basically, all of your fan favorites, eliminators, which are robots who are covered in a synthetic skin and are often sent back in time to hunt down enemies of the AI that created them, and they have a liquid metal version. So, I mean, we're hitting all of the sci-fi greats. And I think for a companion which the goal of the companions are to say, hey, if you like this genre, here's how to replicate everything we can think of in that genre with the serial numbers filed off. The sci-fi companion does that, and because of the breadth of science fiction, possible science fiction influences, everything from Sword and Planet through like hard sci-fi like The Expanse, or science fantasy like Star Wars, or kind of soft sci-fi, which would I mean, Star Trek still tries to be hard sci-fi, but they get a little hand wavy sometimes. If you like science fiction, this is the book for you. There's a link in the show notes. I cannot highly recommend this one enough. Yeah, it is $40, which is not a bad deal for a 300-page book. One of the great things about the companions, and why I tend to recommend the companions is like the very first thing you get after the Savage Worlds core rulebook, is that it does not rely on any genre conventions and allows you to take your favorite things and put them into your game. I love Ghost Mountain, but it is a very kind of specific look at sort of martial arts fantasy. It's a snapshot, if you will. The fantasy companion, and even more so with the sci-fi companion, is a toolbox that says, hey, everything in here is fair game, but it's up to you as the GM to put the limits that you want on the game. So this allows you to take the Suede rules and expand them even more to make your sci-fi setting feel very unique to your table, your setting, or your publication if you are a swag fan or ace licensee. So that is it for the science fiction companion. I will also point out that sci-fi related, this Thursday on Savage Universe, I'm talking with Tracy Sizemore about the Han Cluster, and Tracy is going to be on Behind the Screen next week to talk about the Han Cluster. Speaking of science fiction and Savage Worlds, it seems kind of a natural fit. On Thursday, I'm going to be talking about this adventure, The Hermit by Trollord Games. Possibly the most unique adventure that I have seen in recent memory. A wonderful adventure from one of the fathers of the hobby, Gary Gygax. Can't wait to talk about The Hermit. And then next week, we're going to have Tracy on. Again, yes, John Doom, you're right. The backer kit starts in about 45 minutes. And we're going to be talking about a line of graphic novels by a new company that is very unique. I'm looking forward to showing them off on screen and talking about the beauty of the stuff coming out of Symbolic World. If you like fairy tales, or if you're a fan of Jackals, their God's Dog comic book line feels very Jackal-y, except maybe a little bit more Roman than Greek, but it's a unique thing. We're going to be covering their first three graphic novels that have come out: God's Dog Monster, Snow White and the Widow Queen, and Jack and the Fallen Giants. So I'm looking forward to the next 2 weeks of Behind the Screens already scheduled, and talking about that. Also, if you are at all interested in hearing me talk about other things, you can go over to the Palladium Books channel. I've been doing a series of interviews with Kevin Zambita of Palladium Games. We're talking about the history of Palladium books. This week, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle episode drops on Thursday. So that is and the final the March Jackals supplement, which is a series of monsters that are from the Valley of Troicus, which is to the northwest of Crowryla. We'll be going out to patrons of the iconic Patreon later this week and will be available for purchase, hopefully before the end of the month. Got high hopes. Thank you to Tink for the art pieces that she does for these Jackal supplements. So that's it. That's everything that was fit to talk about for this one. I will see you all on Thursday. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, stay gaming. I am JM. This has been Behind the Screen, and I will see you all later. Have a good one, everybody.